I've made some big mistakes trying to get down to 10% body fat over the last few years. Now in this video, I'm gonna share with you my top 5 biggest mistakes I've made. That way you can learn from mistakes and save time, energy, and maybe a little bit of frustration along the way. Let's jump into it. Mistake number 1, I absolutely blew it on the weekends. Now I'm gonna share with you what I did wrong. That way you can learn from my mistake and I'll tell you how you can actually fix it as well. So this might sound a little familiar for you also, but Monday through Friday, what I did, I absolutely crush it. So I'm getting my 5 workouts in per week. My protein's about 160 grams per day. My calories are at 2,200 calories and I'm dialed in. But then Saturday comes and I'm basically blowing it on one day. So I'm not walking as much. I'm drinking more alcohol. I'm having more like pizza and like frozen foods like chicken nuggets, which are fantastic, but I wouldn't recommend it. And that one bad day sometimes leaks into the Sunday as well, would just completely ruin my Monday through Friday. And I really couldn't understand why, because I'm like, man, I'm dialed in on these 5 days. I made one simple change though, just one simple change. Because it's not like you can't have someone's favorite foods on the weekend. All I did though, instead of having 2,200 calories Monday through Friday, I lowered that number to 2,000 Monday through Friday. So just 200 per day, but it gave me an extra about 1,000 to maybe potentially 1,200 calories on this Saturday, which I can use and enjoy myself a bit more. It might not seem like a lot, like 1,000 and 1,200 calories, but you do that week over week over week, you can see why you're gonna stall your progress. So you just need to lower your calories a little bit during the week if you want to have that one higher calorie day where you can enjoy some of your favorite foods. Now think of it this way, and I've used this example before, this analogy before. Let's say you have $700 to spend in the week. How you spend that $700 is up to you. You can spend, $100 every single day, nice and equal. Or let's say you want to have like one bigger purchase on a Saturday. If there's like a nice jacket that costs like $200-$300, you want that jacket on a Saturday and you spend the money for it. That's fine as long as you compensate for that number. So you have to lower the other 6 days for your money to make sure you don't go over the $700. Does that make sense? It's the exact same thing when it comes to calories. So if you do want more of a proven system to set this up, it's 100% free. I'll link it in the description or comments below. Just grab it. It's called our Weekend Warrior System. It basically teaches you how to lose fat, set up your calorie number, and that way you do it in a non-restrictive approach. And it's a plug-and-play system. So that's mistake number 1. Mistake number 2, I was underestimating my calorie intake. Now here's the thing. Humans suck at counting calories, including myself, including every single person. And there's actually a stat that shows we tend to underestimate calories by about 20 to 50%. So meaning, let's say you think you're having 2,000 calories a day, you're probably actually having, 20% at the top of my head relative to 2,000, but probably anywhere between like 2,700 to like 4,000 calories, and you think you're having 2,000. So think of that. So what I did, and here are a couple mistakes I made, and again, just remember this is probably like 10 years ago, so I was still kind of a bit new in terms of kind of really leaning down. I underestimated portion sizes, and that's kind of like the low-hanging fruit. So in other words, like I thought I was having like 100 grams of potatoes, for example, and maybe I was having like 120 or 130 grams. Another big one, I forgot to calculate the oil in my calories, so I use olive oil. Even like a bit of a, I can't remember if it's tablespoon, teaspoon on the top of my head, but it's about 120 calories just like that. I forgot to add it in. Sugars and coffee, I never added that in. And then even sauces. I'm not like a huge sauce guy, but even like barbecue sauce, not a ton of calories, but 40, 60 calories right there. You add that with the sugar, combine the portion control, and you're not calculating oil, you can see why my fat loss was stalled at one point. So if you are tracking calories, and you're stuck right now, what I would say is give yourself the 10 to 20% rule, meaning let's say you think you're supposed to be having 2,200 calories a day, or that's the number you're trying to aim for. Just kind of maybe minus it by 10% or 20%. That's your new number because it just gives you a bit of a wiggle room. And let's say you're having 1,800 calories now, you're probably still having like 2,200 calories because maybe you're missing out on some things, but it just gives you that more flexibility for it. So mistake number 2, I underestimated my calorie intake. If that sounds like you and you're stuck, even though you're counting calories at a relatively low number, then give yourself the 10 to 20% rule, and I guarantee it will help you. Mistake number 3, I prioritized burning calories over step count. So here's what I did. So I did my 5 strength workouts per week, so that was never an issue for me. And keep in mind, guys, if you are trying to get down to 10% body fat, you do gotta get a little bit extreme in terms of your workouts and obviously your nutrition. But what I did wrong was instead of focusing on my step counts, I really focused on burning calories and try to kill myself instead. So a lot of like Tabata, a lot of HIIT training, a lot of burpees, a lot of sprinting. So you couple that with 5 strength workouts per week, that's a lot in the body. And I think a lot of times we really don't talk enough about recovery. So if you combine that and maybe you're not sleeping well and maybe you're stressed out, you're not going to drop body fat because, your cortisol is going to be a little bit higher and just things kind of get all out of whack. So what I recommend doing, again, this is only if you want to get down to 10% body fat, because 10% you do got to do some extreme stuff if you want to push the limit. So focus on your 5 strength workouts per week, but instead of focusing on doing like a lot of like cardio where you're really trying to just kill yourself and burn calories, I want you to focus on a higher step count instead. So instead, let's say you have like 6,000 steps per day now, try to bump up to like 10,000 and try to build up that number. It's just low impact. It's not going to wreck your body, and it's really not going to tap too much into your recovery. Because if you did 5 strength workouts per week and then made the mistake I did where you're doing like a ton of HIIT and a ton of like intense workouts on top of it, you can see why it's a bit of an issue in terms of you're not going to recover properly, especially when your calories are a little bit lower as you're trying to get leaner. So that's mistake number 3. Mistake number 4, and it's going to tie in very well to mistake number 5, so hang tight, but it's way too many distractions. So when I was trying to get down at 10% at one point, when I was failing and just not doing good, I just had way too much going on in my life. I was in school, I was failing in school, I never really applied myself. I was trying to become a cop at that time. There's just so many things I was trying to do, and I just really couldn't focus on, getting as lean as I possibly could, because just way too many things were going on in my life. And like I said before, stress plays a big role, believe it or not, in terms of actually getting down to, very lean levels. So what I recommend, if you really want to get down to 10% body fat, you're going to make sure you're dialed in basically every aspect of your life. But this is going to lead me to my 5th point and my 5th mistake, because I think for a lot of you, this is going to be a better spot to hang out. So let's get into it, and I'll really break it down right now. Mistake number 5, I was overestimating how lean I really needed to be. So kind of like I said before, getting down to 10% body fat is pretty hard to do. And I think for a lot of you watching this video, maybe you're at like 30%, 25% right now, and your dreams get at 10% body fat. If that's what you want, absolutely go for it, don't get me wrong. However, I think a better spot to hang out for a lot of people, a lot of guys, especially, over 30 years old, is that 12 to 15% body fat range. So in that range, you're still gonna see your abs, you're still gonna have maybe like a 2, maybe a 4-pack, you're gonna have some good muscle definition. When you're at 10% body fat, you just gotta sacrifice so many things. Like you gotta work out 5 times per week, which maybe you're doing right now. You gotta walk like 10,000 plus steps per day. You gotta be dialed in with your nutrition. You can't have as many cheat meals. Like for me, I'm probably around like 10% right now because it's just my natural range. And I can still do all those things where I enjoy myself a bit more because I kind of developed that set point. But I think for a lot of you, 12 to the 14, maybe 50% body fat range is a lot more reasonable lifestyle, and you can still just like have those favorite foods every weekend. You can still dial in your workouts, but you don't have to like crush yourself, and just a better overall lifestyle in my opinion, opposed to getting down to like sub 10% body fat. I was about 8 at one point. I just really didn't enjoy myself. So that was just my mistake. I just really overestimated like I kind of like thought myself at one point, like, why am I even doing this right now? And again, I'm kind of at 10% right now, but I'm honestly really not trying that much. I just kind of like have that set point. So my body's almost kind of like adapted to that. So what I would say to you, really think like what your goal is. Do you want to get down to 10% and like give up a lot of things in your life and really dial it in? Or do you want to hang out like at 12 to 14, maybe 50%? You still see your abs, you got muscle definition, and you can basically not really give up your lifestyle. Obviously, you got to give up some things, but you can still enjoy yourself a bit more. So to recap, my 5 biggest mistakes trying to get down to 10% body fat. It was a long journey at one point. Mistake number 1, I blew it on the weekends. Mistake number 2, I was underestimating how many calories I was actually taking in. Mistake number 3, I prioritized burning calories over my step count. Mistake number 4, I just had too many distractions in my life. And mistake number 5, I just overestimated how lean I really wanted to be. So again, if you want that weekend warrior, that kind of ties into point number 1, which will help you lose fat, have some of those favorite foods every weekend, and still get like down to that. You still can get down to 10 to 50% body fat very easily, assuming you're just dialed in. If you want it, it'll be in the comments below. Just grab it there, it's 100% free, and I'll tell you basically exactly what you need to do. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.